All right. Mm. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, back here. Let's look at it. Okay. I'm going to share my screen with you all. All right. Yeah, well, we thank you for this day that you've given us, and we thank you for the study of the Torah. We thank you for forgiving our crimes and our sins and remembering us as the sons and the daughters of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. We ask tonight, Yahweh, that you would continue to teach us, open up our ears and eyes to see and to hear the wonderful things that will be found in your Torah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Praise the mighty Yah. All right. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
All right, wonderful. So let me ask you all a question right quick. What did you guys so far have gotten out of your Torah portion? What have you learned so far? Or something, what questions that you may have had or something that you were reading that brought some light to you or you want to know more about? Or you found yourself stumped like, why is this there? Or, why are we reading about this again? Or has that even come across your mind?
No, I usually have most of my questions. We have a discussions. It helped me think a little deeper about what we've read.
Okay. Okay. All right, wonderful, awesome. Well, as you know, our chapters are from chapter number 5 through chapter number 7. This Shabbat, we're going to be going over that. But what I want to do is I want to talk to us about what it is to be a Nazir. This will be a good thing to go over. A Nazir is one who is found to be consecrated to the Most High, talking about the vow of a Nazarite. We won't be able to discuss this on Yom Shabbat because it's really in detail, and I didn't put any slides together for it, but I want to talk a little bit about that tonight, if that's okay. What do you guys know about a Nazir? Have you ever heard of that term before? Like a Nazir or a Nazarite?
I have.
Okay. And what do you understand about that?
Mm, well, they are. Well, the last time we went over, I learned that women can be a Nazarite too. So I
Yeah.
didn't know that. And they have certain things they can and can't do.
Okay.
And they have strict ways of living.
Yes, absolutely. It's the strict ways of living, but also too, a lot of it has to do with their diet, right? So in verse number 1, it says, and spoke Yahweh to Moshe, saying, he says, speak to the sons of Israel. I'm reading from right to left, by the way, and say to them, if there's a man or a woman, as you just indicated, that either one of them wants to consecrate themselves, the Yafili, okay, the Yafali that consecrates and takes a vow of a Nazarite or a Nazarene or Nazir, that person is to separate themselves to Yahweh. Okay. This term to Yahweh is something that's used often when we're talking about someone who's been dedicated to the Most High. These are the very same words that are used or put on the priest is the high priest. He is consecrated to the Most High. Okay, so the high priest, he has a gold plate on his head, and on his head is called Kadosh, meaning set apart, and then it has these words, La Yahweh, and that is imprinted upon this gold plate that's on top of his turban. There's several different people who have been dedicated to the Most High through this Nazir vow, okay? This vow can be something that someone can decide to want to do. For example, a man can say, I want to do it, and a woman, you guys can say that you want to separate yourself. And you do that by not cutting your hair. And also too, they're going to tell us about the different things of which a person will refrain themselves from. So number one, that they're going to consecrate themselves from and set themselves apart is going to be from wine. Okay. So it's going to be from yayin. Yayin is wine. They will not drink any wine, and they will not have any other type of alcoholic beverage. They're not going to do that. They're actually going to set themselves apart from those things. Okay. Anything with comates, anything of a vinegar type of wine, they're not going to have that. They're not going to, or any other type of strong drink, they're not going to drink that as well. There is a couple of examples about these individuals that I kind of want to go over a little bit tonight to tell you where you can find more information about a Nazir and how it happens and who it happens to. They also have to refrain not just from wine, from it being going through the process of becoming wine. So as you know, grapes are put aside and they're fermented to end up becoming wine. So they don't even get to have anything like grape juice. They can't have. They can't eat any grapes. They can't eat any raisins. They can't do any of that. So they can't eat certain things, and anything they can't drink. Now, this is all directly connected to which we would call the vineyard. Okay. Or vineyard or vineyard. So in the vineyard, at certain times, the Most High says, and I'll ask the question, when are we not to go and reap anything from the vineyard? When does he say, I don't want you to trim it, cut it, touch it, nothing? Every 7th year. Okay, so 6 years you get to cut, reap, harvest, and all these different types of things, trim them back. But on the 7th year, you're not allowed to go and trim. So you can't trim anything. So this is where this idea of the Nazir comes from the vineyard. Okay. And in the vineyard, when you just let the grapes go and the branches go all over the place, this is what he says, that during that time, I don't want you to cut those grapes or, cut the vine. I just want you to just let it go. I just wanted to let it flow. So in verse number 4, he says, all the days of his, which is not, he's letting us know, he's talking about the male and the woman, of their separation, all that is produced by the grapevine from the seed into the skin, nothing shall be eaten. And it says, all the vows, or all the days of the vow of their separation, there shall never be a razor upon their head. Okay, so you can't have a razor to come to your head, so you cannot cut your hair. Just like you wouldn't be able to go and trim a vineyard or vine. You can't do that. So it becomes very wild. Okay, so you're going to let your hair grow wild, right? You're not going to cut it. You're not going to trim it. You're not going to do any of those things. It's just going to just go. Okay, no razor. And he says, until the fulfillment of the days in which the person has consecrated themselves. So in this case of the Nazir, they can actually consecrate themselves for a specified time. It could be for a year, it could be for 2 years, it could be for whatever. And then again, this idea of La Yahweh, Kodosh La Yahweh is there. Okay. Kodesh La Yahweh is right there. So that's again the same words that are being used on the priest's head. So what does that mean? If a person can become like, in a sense, like the high priest, what are they saying? If you want to become like the high priest in this way, what are you really saying to Most High? If you're saying that I'm going to consecrate and I'm going to separate myself, what are you saying?
They're devoting yourself to him. They're
Yes, perfect. Yeah, so devotion is what it is, and dedication. Okay, so you probably hear me talk a little bit more about dedication on Shabbat. So it's about devotion, it's about dedication. So this person is devoting themselves and they're dedicating themselves to the Most High, right? In order for them to be separate. Okay, and he says, and they shall let their locks grow. Okay, so it's not just about, when you talk about locks, it's really literally talking about your hair. Your hair is just braided, right? So there's actually locks. So this is where the term locks come from. Okay, in one of our Haftarah readings, we find that this in particular guy they known as Samson, his name is really Shimshon. Okay. Shimshon has, he has locks, and he has 7 of them. Okay. Of locks of hair. And he let his hair grow out. His mother never cut his hair or anything. And that was the secret to his strength. And he was in covenant to the Most High. So we're going to talk a little bit about how he ended up becoming that. But yes, Fanta, being like the high priest, is one of devotion, and their life is of devotion, and their life is of total dedication. Okay. So dedication is a big part of that. And that's what they're giving over to the Most High. They're giving their life to him in this sense. So the days in which they're doing this is kind of like having more of like a Shabbat. Because remember, you can't touch the vineyard on that year that you have, right? On the 7th year. And that happens every 7 years. That happens. Okay. So 6 years, rest the 7th, another 6 years, the 7th. So that happens. So what it is like a really of a ceasing, because that's what Shabbat is. It's a ceasing of one's life. You're dedicating your life to Yah. At that moment, I'm strictly on him. So as your hair is growing, you're not touching it. It's a reminder that my life is dedicated to the Most High. So that's what you're going to give. And so you have to specify how much time you're going to do this. Because you're not the high priest, you're not going to be able to dedicate it, for eternity, right? Or for the rest of your life. Okay. Because there's festivals and stuff like that. You may, depends on how many times you want to miss, wine and all that kind of stuff. But it doesn't give any limitations on how long a person can do this. So I don't want to put that in there and say, well, you don't want to, but you can. But you won't be able to eat grapes. You won't be able to drink wine. There's also a lot of other things too that can happen during the time of your separation to Yahweh. It tells us in verse number 6 that you can't even come near to a dead body. And if someone died, you can't go to your father, your mother. If they died, you won't be able to go to them. If your brother or your sister died, you won't be able to make yourself unclean for them. Just like the high priest, see, which is very special. It says when they die, because you're separated, the separation is upon your head. So when you do this time of separation, these are the things that one has to take into consideration. If I'm going to be separate to the Most High, I'm saying that if my mother and father die, or my brother or my sister die, or anybody dies, I can't even go near them. I can't even go to their funeral. I can't even touch their body. I can't do none of those things. So that's something that has to be thought about. So it's not just what you can eat and what you can drink, but also too, you're talking about how you're going to operate within the community, right? Verse number 8, and said, all the days of the separation, you're kadosh to Yahweh. Now, what does that mean to be kadosh to Yahweh? Set apart? Is it a spiritual thing only, or what is it? What it means is like anytime we take this vow of being separated for the Most High, of being kadosh, that means that Yah is treating you differently. Yah is treating you differently than he would at any other time. Because being kadosh is separate, it's very, very special. Okay, so this is a different time in which you and I can make ourselves special to the Most High, right? And we have the ability to do so. And when I'll talk more about that in just a moment, we can become special to the Most High. So our devotion, our dedication to the Most High is considered special to him. And therefore, because you treated that time with him special, he's going to treat you very special. So a lot of things might happen for you. You might get a lot more insight on things that the Most High wants for your life. You're going to grow stronger, spiritually. Physically, you're probably going to be different. You know what I mean? You're going to have this difference about you, this set apartness. And you have done this. And guess what? And also too, there's an outward sign of that, and that outward sign is your hair. That outward sign is what you eat. That outward sign. So when people are drinking it and they know that you're not drinking, they'd be like, well, why aren't they drinking? Well, in that custom, in that culture, they would know that's the sign. This person is set apart. This person is set apart for the Most High. Okay. So, but also too, there's a risk. The risk is in verse number 9, if someone dies next to you, then they messed up your whole consecration. If that happens, if anyone dies, like say you're in a house and someone dies in there and you didn't know it, but you're in a house that they died in, then your consecration now has to end. So what Yah is telling us is that when a person is consecrated for him, He doesn't want them to be exposed to death. You cannot be exposed to death. Okay. So consecration is talking about really about one's life. As he has told us, it's about one's life. Okay. So you can't be exposed to it, but if you are exposed to it, he says you got to cut all your hair off. Right. So a woman, when she takes this vow, and a man, when they take this vow, they have to understand the moment that your consecration is ended due to the fact of someone dying around you, then you got to shave your hair off. So she's going to have to shave her head and he's going to have to shave his head. And guess what? They're going to have to remain unclean for 7 days. And on the 8th day, what's going to happen is because that happened, because now that the consecration ended suddenly, they're going to have to bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons to the priest to the door of the tabernacle, the meeting. And the reason for this is because it's considered, one is going to be for a burnt offering, the other one's going to be for a sin offering. Now, what did they do to bring upon this sin? They didn't do anything to bring upon this sin. The sin just happened. Okay. Sin is just in there. Sin is part of our life. Okay. So one of these doves will go towards the sin offering, and the other one is going to go for the burnt offering, which is the olah. The olah is the one that ascends up to the Most High. So we see here that Yah is saying, I want you to acknowledge that something is going to ascend to me through this offering, through one of those birds, okay, and which is one of peace. Okay, so the dove is not a ravenous bird, it's not a predator, it's one who is of humility. So when we bring these offerings to the Most High, he's letting us know that one of them I'm going to use because you are in your sin, because you're around death, right? So anytime you're exposed to it, you're going to have to bring that to me. So literally what you're saying to me is not that you're the sinner, but you're saying to me is that because of the sin, because of this unfortunate thing of death, I'm going to humble myself to you and bring that to you to acknowledge that I'm always in a state of humility around you because you're my Elohim. And secondly, through my humility, I'm going to bring this olah to you because I want something to ascend up to you to tell you that I'm not only bringing it for my humility, but I'm also too acknowledging my humility before you. And so they bring it to the HaKohen, which is already set apart. He's going to bring those things and he's going to atone for this individual because the sin in regards to the corpse, it was the soul of that person. When the death happens, there is the sin of the hanafesh, which is the life of that person. And so after they go through this process, the Most High says, now you're going to go through that process, but on the day that this happens, on that 7th day, you have to do this on that 7th day in order for you to go through the complete process of being set apart. Okay, so you lost your set apartness, and it also says, and he shall consecrate to Yahweh the days of his separation, being caused to by Yahweh to do this, and bring a lamb. So not only are you going to bring those 2 turtle doves, but also they were required to bring a lamb, and this is for something called an accident, okay, which is an Asham offering. They're going to have to bring that lamb for a trespass offering, which I did on an accident, meaning I was exposed to it. So I have to acknowledge that accidents happen. This is the beauty of the Torah, which is telling us about humility, telling us that we have to acknowledge things, and telling us that we acknowledge that a life was the ending of a life and death is a transgression. It's a sin against a person who touches it, because the Most High says, when I live among you, I'm alive. So if you're saying this, you're saying, okay, well, I know Yah is living, right? So I have to acknowledge the life of Yah. Therefore, if I'm going to acknowledge the life of Yah, I got to bring a life to him. Praise the mighty Yah. So on this day, he says, but all the former days, but the days former shall be lost. So if you didn't get a chance to fulfill your vow all the way up to the time of your separation that you had vowed, that vow has been broken by death. Okay. And because of that, you were defiled, made unclean by this, by your separation because of this person. Okay. So that's a risk that can happen. Okay. And so he tells us that is the law This is the Torah, because the Torah is the instructions. So the Most High is giving the instructions to the children of Israel about an individual who wants to set themselves apart and who wants to fulfill the days. Okay, the muleh or the maloth is to fulfill these days of his separation. If the days are not fulfilled, he never fulfilled his vow. So what does one has to do? They can start over all over again. Okay. And so he tells us how that can happen. But also he says that on these days of separation, because this is the Torah, this is the instruction. Okay. When those to say he fulfills the days of his separation, right? And he fulfilled all the days of his separation, that person shall bring, say if it's a year, at that time, he's going to go to the tent of meeting on that to with the priest are, and he's going to go there and he's going to present an offering to the Most High. And this is going to be a lamb of the first year without blemish for a burnt offering. So we see another process here. You got the burnt offering that you got to bring, and you got to bring a lamb, one lamb and one lamb for the burnt offering, and you're going to bring a ram. So first year blemish offering to light. Yeah, one male lamb without blemish to Yahweh for a burnt offering. You're going to bring another lamb, okay, in his first year for a sin offering, and you're going to bring a ram, right, without blemish for a peace offering. So if a person fulfills their days without this interruption of someone making them unclean, that's what they have to bring to the Most High. So if you notice, the Most High says, okay, if it was a sin offering, you're going to bring me two turtle doves, one for the sin offering, one for the burnt offering. If it's fulfillment of your days, then that's what I'm going to ask you to bring to me the ram. I'm going to ask for you to bring me the lamb, and I'm asking you to bring me the male lamb and the female lamb, because there's one male lamb that has to be brought right here. It's called the kaves. And right here, if you notice, this is a noun, which is a feminine singular. This is a masculine singular. So I want a male and a female if you fulfilled your days. Okay. And so before one is to be able to take this vow, they will have to be able to afford, okay, because this has to do with finance. Okay. They would have to be able to fulfill that vow with a lamb, a male lamb and a female lamb. And also too, they would have to provide a ram, a male ram. They're going to have to provide this as well. And one ram without blemish for a peace offering. So without those offerings, okay, and let me finish, in a basket, they're going to have to bring a basket of unleavened bread and fine flour and mixed with wafers and with oil, anointed with oil, a grain offering, drink offerings. They're going to have to bring all these offerings, and they're going to bring it to the priest before Yahweh. So the question is one able to, in this state that we're in our exile, is one able to bring any of these things to the Most High? Can we?
No,
No.
no.
So if we can't bring a sin offering, you can't bring a peace offering, you can't bring an olah, you can't bring a minkai, you can't bring no flour, you can't mix it with no belula, with the shemen, you can't mix that with the oil, you have no frankincense, you have no wine, you have no drink, you have nothing. You have no priesthood. So this raises the question in, are we able to consecrate ourselves to Yahweh and make a vow? Ourselves.
I
No,
don't know.
no, you can't. See, that's the problem we're having. Number one, as a people, we're so desperate, right? We want to be close to the Most High. We want to consecrate ourselves to Him, right? Now, what am I saying? I'm just telling us what the Torah is teaching, because it says this is the Torah. Isn't that what it said? This is the Torah. So if we're going to follow the Torah, we'll find it in verse number 13. This is the Torah of this type of person, the Hanazir, a male or female. And he tells us when their days are fulfilled. So if your days of this in particular set apartness, if you're not able to go to the tabernacle of meeting, you're not able to present an offering to Yahweh, you're not able to bring anything without blemish, male or female lamb, and you're not able to bring that ram, and you're not able to bring any of the things that he told us that this is the Torah, then guess what? If we try to do anything outside of this instruction for us, it is what they would call blasphemy. Is blasphemy. because we're saying that we're gonna devote ourselves to the Most High in the method and in the manner that we want to dedicate ourselves to the Most High. And this hurts our feelings because we really honestly want to be dedicated. But the fact of the matter is where are we right now? And I'm going to talk more about this on Shabbat. Where are we right now? Are we in the land? Are we around our Elohim?
No.
No. So this hurts us. Now, let me ask you something. Let me just ask a question. Anyone can answer this. Do you want to be dedicated to the Most High? Would you like to take out some time and be dedicated to him? If you could without the offerings, would you do it?
Yes, I would.
I would.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I would. I desire to be dedicated. But the fact of the matter is, this is something that we read that a person, a male or female, they can vow that vow out of their mouth, but they have to be able to provide what the Torah calls for. So we can have the best intentions in the world, but while we're in an exile, we're not able to achieve this. Okay. Now, however, there's another part that I want to mention so we can learn from it. Is while we're in exile, there are other people who were dedicated to the Most High. Okay, so there's a difference. One is you dedicating yourself, right? As we saw in verse number 1. And then we have the other person who's dedicated to the Most High by someone else. Listen to this. Then we have the one who Yahweh dedicates for himself. Okay, so quickly, and you know what? You guys are going to force me to put this in my teaching on for Shabbat. The place that I want to go right quick is, I'm just going to read it because this is important for us to understand. Yah's showing that to me, that I want you to bring this out for us, because we have to understand where we are. Okay, and what's going on. And we're not playing religious games, because that's what Christians do. That's what Muslims do. They all believe that they're 100 with the Most High. Okay, they honestly believe that. All right. So in chapter number, I think it's chapter number 2, if I'm not mistaken. It might be chapter number 1. Yeah, let's go to chapter number 1. In the book of Samuel, chapter number 1, it talks about, you can write this down for your records. It gives us this, and I'm not going to read it all, but it gives us this idea about this man having 2 wives. And one is called Hannah, which is Kana, and the other one is called Peninnah. Okay, yeah, Peninnah. And he had these 2 wives, and Hannah couldn't have any children, right? And he loved her. And so, this other woman was making her feel really bad about it. Verse number 7, they used to go up to the house of Yahweh, and this woman would be crying, and the other wife would be making him upset. The only reason why he had another wife is because he couldn't have any children with Hannah. So, we'll use her name, Kana. And so he went to the temple, and she's always there crying. He's like, hey, hey, why are you so sad? I'm always taking care of you. You're better than me than 10 sons. He's trying to comfort his wife. Verse 9. So Hannah got up, and she finished eating and drinking in Shiloh, right? So Hannah got up after because she didn't eat or drink, and Eli the Kohen was sitting at the front on the seat at the doorpost of the temple of Yahweh. So now the setting is there at the temple of Yahweh. And a deep depression, she prayed. She was at the temple. She was praying to Yahweh and cried. She took a vow. She took a vow, okay, which is in the dare, meaning she spoke something. She said, Yahweh Zavaoth, if you will notice how humiliated your servant is, and if you will remember me and not forget your servant, but give your servant a male child, then I will give him to Yahweh for as long as he lives, and no razor will ever come on his head. Okay? So remember what we read in our Torah portion, you can dedicate yourself. And in this case, we see this woman, his mother, dedicating before he's even born. You understand? So before he's even born, the mother dedicated. Okay? She said out of her mouth, if you will remember me and not forget your servant, but give your servant a male child, then I will give him to Yahweh as long as he live, and no razor will ever come upon his head. So she understood what that vow meant. Therefore, no razor could ever come upon this kid's head. And this in particular child is called Shemuel, which is the name of the book in which we're in. So she prayed. And by the way, Shemuel he's from the Levitical family. That's where he's from. We can find that in First Chronicles chapter number 6, if I'm not mistaken. So she prayed for a long time. So after she made that vow, right, made it before Yahweh, as she did so, Eli was watching her mouth. So Kanah was speaking in her heart, just her lips were moving, but her voice was not heard. So Eli thought that she was drunk. He thought that she was drunk. And of course, I've done a teaching on drink. Strong drink represents one pouring their heart out. So when you usually get drunk and you drink strong liquor, that's when you talk about all your troubles and you bring those things out. That's why in the tabernacle, they pour out a strong drink to Yah, because it's voicing how they feel, okay, and their longings and how Yah hears them. So Eli said to her, he said, how long are you going to stay drunk? Why? Because she's sitting there murmuring, and he didn't know what she was saying. She said, stop your drinking wine. But Hannah answered, no, I'm a very unhappy woman. Okay. And I have not drunk either wine or strong liquor. Rather, I've been pouring out my soul before Yahweh. It's kind of interesting that he said that to her when both his sons were doing all kind of heinous things at the tabernacle. He's trying to check her. But he says this. So strong drink, remember, strong drink, all right, is connected to a person pouring out their soul. That's why a priest pours out strong liquor, because it's like they're pouring out their emotions, the deepest part of them, their soul to Yah. She said, don't think of your servant as a worthless woman, because I have been speaking from the depth of my distress and anger. Okay, so she's angry, she's mad. Then Eli replied, go in peace. May the Elohim of Israel grant you what you have asked of him. Okay, so he's thinking that this is a regular prayer that she was just asking for, but she's not only praying, she actually vowed to the Most High. Now, was she able to keep what she promised? Yes, she was able to keep what promised. She mentions the razor and no head because she understood. Her husband, they would go to the temple every year. So they had the means to be able to do the ram. They had the means for the sin offerings. They had the means for the, whatever it may have been, they had the means to cover it. Okay. So she replied, may your servant, and so she replied, may your servant find favor in your sight. So the woman went on her way and she ate, and her face was no longer sad. Why? Because she had confidence in what it was, because this high priest was telling her, hey, you know, may Yahweh go, may you go in peace, may you go in shalom, and may Elohim of Israel grant you what you have asked of him. So she knew, and she had confidence that, wait a minute, the high priest is talking to me and his name. And believe me, she knew his name. Okay. His name is Eli, and Eli means my El. That's what Eli means. Okay. Eli means my El, and it consists of an Aleph, forgive my writing, and a Lamed and a Yod. Okay. The first part is El, which means the strong one. And he says here, the Yod means my. So my strong one, my El. So Elohim is my El. So when she went to him and he spoke to her, she can actually, know that the Most High has heard her, because listen to this man's name. My Elohim is El, or El is mine. He's mine. So at that time, he said, go into shalom. Why? Because shalom not only means to be at peace, but also to be whole. So she knew, she had confidence, and it resonated with her, not only by what he said, but by what his name meant. Because he is my El, he is my Elohim. And so when we know that Yah is our El, we should understand that if you get a word from the Most High and he tells you to go in peace and to be shalom or shalom, you're going to be in some shalom. And so he said, may Elohim of Israel grant you what you have asked. And at that time, she felt good. She was no longer sad. Remember, she went in angry, but this is what happens when you have that access to Yah through the high priest. So they got up early in the morning, they worshiped before Elohim, and then returned and went to their house in Ramah. And Elkanah, he has sexual relations with his wife. Okay. And that's the only way that that promise can ever happen, because that's what her desire was, is to have a seed. And therefore, he had it with his wife, and Elohim remembered her. Oh, praise be to the living Elohim. And then, of course, it says that she conceived, and in time, which is probably 9 months, she gave birth to a son whom she named Shemuel. And she named him because she said, I asked Yahweh for him. And so based on her prayer and her vow, okay, she named her son after that prayer, okay, derived from Shem El, meaning the name of El. Look at Yah's name inside, because she asked for him. And it sounds like Shual Miel, but it means that she asked. Okay. Shaul means also to Shaul, Shaul Miel means that I asked, I inquired of Yah. So she's telling us, even with, so every time they mention this boy's name, it's a reminder to her as he's a little kid that, listen, I've asked and inquired of Yah. I've asked for Shemuel. I've asked for him, and Yah has heard me. Oh, praise be to the mighty Yah. And so her husband, Elkanah, went up with all his household to offer yearly the sacrifice to Yahweh to fulfill his vow. So listen, everybody in Israel understood that if you was going to make a vow to Yah, you have to you got to fulfill your vow. That's why they went to the temple to make those sacrifices. So we not only see she had nothing, but what she had to wait for is for Yah to give her something to vow to Yah. So anytime Yah gives you something, right, and you want to vow it to him, right, and you're in the capacity to do so, you should do so, right? So you say, well, Dawid, didn't you just tell me that if I try to vow myself, I can't do it. I can't do the vow of the Nazarite because I don't have access to that. I don't have the proper stuff to do. Okay. You understand? But also too, listen, if you're vowing something to Yah that you have the ability to fulfill, then you can vow that. You're Israel. You have access to the Elohim of Israel. One thing that you can't do though, okay, is you can't vow yourself to the Most High because you don't have the proper Torah in order to follow that, okay? Her case, in this case right here, she was able to vow her son because she had the means to be able to vow him, and she had the power and the control to make sure that whatever happens, if that vow ever got broke, she was able to bring those offerings, okay? So what we're going to do, everyone, is we're going to stop here. We go talk more about this on Shabbat, okay, to tell us, because there's another vowing that one can do to the Most High, all right, that is found within the pages of the Tanakh that you and I are going to go over on Shabbat. Praise be to the living Elohim. Hallelujah, wah, hallelujah, wah, hallelujah, wah. Praise the mighty Yah. Thank you guys for coming tonight. Fancy, you have any questions? Ted, you have any questions?
No.
Praise Yah for all of you tonight. And I'll see you guys, if Yah is willing, on Shabbat. Hallelujah.